Hello, I'm Kaiser and welcome to Moose Reads. Before I get started, I want to say that the opinions that I give here are my own opinions. They are extremely subjective. If I dislike a book, it is not a reflection on the author and it is not a reflection on people who do like it. Different people have different tastes, and that's okay. Today I will be reviewing Scarlet and the White Wolf by Kirby. This is a queer fantasy. You could argue that it's a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. Crow is clearly evoking that imagery with the title, and does play with it a little in the book, but it would honestly be a pretty big stretch. The description for this book says, Scarlet of Lycia is an honest peddler, a young merchant traveling the wild, undefended roads to support his aging parents. Lial, called the Wolf of Omara, is the handsome, world-weary chieftain of a tribe of bandits blocking a mountain road that Scarlet needs to cross. When Lial jokingly demands a carnal toll for the privilege, Scarlet refuses, and an inventive battle of wills ensues, with disastrous results. Scarlet is convinced that Lial is a worthless, immoral rogue, but when the hostile countryside explodes into violence and Lial unexpectedly fights to save the lives of Scarlet's family, Scarlet is forced to admit that the wolf is not the worst ally he could have. But what price will proud Scarlet ultimately have to pay for Lial's friendship? This was a library book pick, and I couldn't possibly tell you how I heard about it. I did enjoy it, though. I gave it 4 stars. I should probably give a content warning here. Because of the way Lial goes about trying to sleep with Scarlet and the fact that he's a bandit leader, there are several interactions that Scarlet perceives as threats of rape. I think there might be an actual threat of rape later in the book, but it was a bit unclear what the intentions were there. Also, jumping ahead a bit, there is at least one scene in the second book where a character very nearly is raped, though they are rescued before anything actually happens. At this point, I've only gotten through the first 2, so I can't speak to what happens beyond that. Not a lot really happens in this book. The summary pretty much covers it. The bulk of this book is spent with Scarlet trying to sneak through the mountain paths in increasingly ridiculous ways and getting caught. This is the first book in a 5-book series, so I think it's mostly just setting up the characters and the world before the religion and magic start to make things weird. All the same, I liked the way the characters interacted with each other. They're both very proud and think they're smarter or better than the other, so there's some antagonism between them, but not too much to negatively impact the romance Crow is working toward. It's dual perspective, so we get an idea of what both men are thinking and what their motivations are. Also, while Lial is kind of being an ass throughout their exchanges, he does eventually both realize this on his own and get called on it by others. So that was nice. I did feel like the opening was a bit clunky. We get a lot of names and culture dumped on us very quickly in the opening pages, and it made it a bit hard to follow. So, for example, Scarlet is from Byzanter, but works in a city called Ankar that I think is part of another country called Morturi. He is specifically a member of the native race of Byzanter called the Hilurin. There are other people in Byzanter called Aralirin, and they don't like the Hilurin. So sometimes the book refers to Byzanter or the Byzants as being antagonistic toward the Hilurin, which at first made me think the Hilurin were not part of Byzanter. This is perhaps a quarter of the peoples and place names introduced, and we are expected to grasp all of it immediately. Most of it became more clear as the book progressed, but it needed the time to breathe before I could parse it all. And honestly, there are still parts I'm a bit fuzzy on. Other than that, there's not really a lot more to say about this one. There's also not much I want to say with regard to spoilers, but we've reached that point. If you don't want spoilers, pause or close the video. For the rest of you, let's talk briefly about spoiler-related things. So, there's some supernatural fantasy stuff going on in this book, and I'm not sure how to feel about it. It might be really cool, it might drive the series into the ground. Early on, Crow establishes that the Bizons worship a goddess called Deva. Only a Hiloran can speak to Deva, so the Hiloran, despite being a minority population in Byzanter, have always been its rulers. Scarlet is not only missing his left pinky, but this entire bone in his hand. He was born with this deformity, and it is considered a sign of luck and a mark of Deva's favor. The Hiloran people also have some magic. At some point, a guy trying to stir up shit between the people of Lycia and the bandits chokes Scarlet nearly to death. As he is surfacing from his near-death experience, he hears a voice calling to him that whispers portents of the future. Neither Scarlet nor the reader can fully understand these words because they reference some aspects of the religious history that have been lost over time. But they kind of imply that he might become immortal. Similarly, Lial says at some point that he became the leader of the bandit Crake 20 years ago. Later, Scarlet tells him about his sometimes employer and notes that the man is old enough to be his father, clearly trying to stave off any jealousy. In response to this, Lial thinks to himself that he himself is old enough to be Scarlet's grandfather. The book ends with Lial journeying to his faraway homeland, which he remarks he has not seen in 60 years. But at no point does anyone else imply that Lial is old, and given that Scarlet tried to imply a lack of interest in men significantly older than him, it is implied that Scarlet thinks they are reasonably close in age. So it's strongly implied that Lial is already immortal. Like I said, I feel like, depending on how this plays out, it can either be interesting or terrible. It's still pretty mild in the second book, but I'm going to start the third book next, and then I guess I'll find out. Unless and until it becomes terrible, I'm going to work my way through it. But at the end of the month, the final book in my current favorite series is being released, so I'll pause to read that once I get it. Either way, if you're curious how the series progresses, but haven't decided to read it yourself, you can look forward to those reviews. If you liked this video, I hope you'll check out more in the future. Thanks for watching this one. Bye!